Hello, friends. Today we are going to be talking about addiction, all types of addiction, specifically from the reincarnation and spiritual level. Why this is part of a person's or soul's experience in this lifetime, why it was a selected experience, what it does at the soul level, and what the true work is, what addiction is calling on us to handle and deal with. It isn't just about abstinence. I think we in humanity, human beings, we have a story around addiction, that it's some sort of a moral failing, that a person who deals with addiction, that there's something bad or wrong about them, that it's their fault, or that they're being punished in some way. But in reality, this is a selected curriculum because the soul who selected it, the person who signed up for this experience in this life, is very brave, and they saw a potential huge opportunity for soul and spiritual growth. Hi, I'm Jillian. If you're new here, I'm all about learning and understanding reincarnation and spirituality and how life is set up from a reincarnation perspective. I like to look at the mechanics of how it all works and break it down so that we can all understand it, so that we can live this life intentionally and not just have life happen to us. So here is the first important thing to talk about. And this is very clear when we look at near-death experiences that recount their life planning process. And also people that have done past life regressions to understand previous lives, but also to understand their current life setup and dealt with that time period in between lives where we plan out our lives. Addiction is something we select to experience. It's given to us as an option to help us learn particular lessons. Essentially, it's a tool for us in human form. It's not something we experience when we're in our spirit bodies. This is something unique to being a human being. And the type of addiction that you experience is also going to be connected to what your physical body is. Some physical bodies have more of an opportunity to alcoholism. Some physical bodies have more of an opportunity to things that are around dopamine-related addictions. So as you are on the other side with your guides looking at setting up your whole life, you looked at the options that you had with your physical body and the type of addiction. If that was something that you saw based off of what you wanted to learn and experience, you saw that as an opportunity. And I know, talking about addiction as an opportunity sounds a little wild, but you'll understand why I say that by the time we get to the end of this video. And you might be thinking, addiction is hard and horrible, and there's no way I would have selected this. Well, what if I posited to you that whatever it is that you're working on learning, and we will get into that, that if you chose addiction or selected addiction as an option in this life, that you are able to complete that lesson and that experience in this life. But if you decided to not engage in the addictive behavior, it would end up taking you 2 to 3 lifetimes to accomplish that. So if you're one of those people that doesn't want to incarnate anymore, that may have been exactly why addiction was selected, because you wanted to get on the fast pass. You wanted to get through this hard part of the human incarnation experience. And so you selected something that was going to give you immense propulsion in your spiritual growth. Now, what kind of spiritual growth? Let's look at the kind of lessons that are often associated with addiction, because when you understand the reason behind the addiction, the lesson that is the opportunity here, and you're able to focus in on that lesson and be an active participant in learning that lesson, it then allows the addiction or other challenging life opportunities to get easy. They don't have to get so loud because you're able to be more intentional. They don't have to scream at you because you're like, okay, I'll play the game. So there's no one lesson for addiction. It's going to be specific to you. So one thing may have been that you wanted to learn surrender. This is a big one connected to addiction, particularly if you're going the 12-step route as a way to deal with or overcome the addiction. It's the idea of surrendering to something bigger than yourself. This is all about releasing the ego and connecting up to the divine, whatever you know that as. That ability to surrender and go with the flow is a major life lesson and a major step in the awakening process. Huge in the awakening process. Going along with that, another reason that addiction may have been selected could have been about spiritual connection or interconnection. Again, if you go through that process of surrendering, connecting up to the higher power, reaching out to God or whatever you know that is to help you through, this is one of the opportunities, is to create that spiritual awareness connection. But also, you may be in a situation where it's allowing you to connect with other people. Again, if you're choosing the route of going through something like a 12-step program, you're now connected into a community of people that have gone through similar experiences to you that you can understand and relate to and connect to in a way other people in your life can't. This is why 12 steps is a great option for a lot of folks, because it brings you into a connection with other people and gives you this support and this holding up that you're not going to get from your family and friends who just aren't going to understand the experience the same way. Another major reason that addiction is on the docket for life experiences is to learn about love, particularly self-love. When we deal with addictions, we become so hard on ourselves, so judgmental. We think we are worthless. We experience things through contrast. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I talk about this a lot. We experience things through the absence of them. It pushes and pushes and pushes on us until we have to find that within ourselves, or until we have to break through because we can't handle the darkness of it anymore. So this idea of being in a place where you loathe yourself, you're ashamed of yourself, you think you're such a horrible person, which isn't true. In order to get through it, in order to survive, you have to begin grasping at the little shards of light, the little pieces where you can begin to love yourself and see the goodness in yourself and then grow those experiences. So if you were wanting to have a life where you learned how to accept yourself, flawed and all, because if you are in human form, you are flawed. There is nobody perfect here on this planet. We all have issues. So to be able to accept and love yourself, not because you're perfect, but because you are imperfect. Huge opportunity when we're looking at addiction. Along with that is forgiveness and releasing guilt. You may have done, or somebody who is an addict may have done a lot of really horrible things while under the influence, or in order to get their drug behavior of choice. They may have done harmful, hurtful things. You have to find a way to accept yourself, forgive yourself for what happened in the past, to be able to center yourself in the present moment and the choices you make right now, and to love yourself and accept yourself for the choices and for the being that you are today, and let go and love the being that you were previously, who was doing their best, going through this challenge and made mistakes and made errors, but learned from them because you're here right now and grew from them. And so this became, that person is part of your story. So this is why forgiveness can be a huge, huge lesson in the addiction experience. Overcoming fear can also be a big one. In the reason that we're selecting addiction, perhaps you're using the behavior, the drug, etc., to plaster over fear. And so that's what you want to work on. It could also be about developing discipline, stopping impulsiveness. Often when we select these lessons, it's because we're looking at previous lifetimes. Usually, actually not often, usually, it's because we're looking at previous lifetimes and looking at what did I do wrong, or what do I wish I did better, or what did I not really get? And if you've had previous lifetimes where you haven't taken responsibility for yourself, where you've behaved really impulsively, where you really didn't pay attention to consequences, it could be that addiction was selected in this lifetime so that you could learn how to operate those muscles of discipline and of self-restraint and of self-respect and of self-nurturing too. That can also be a reason to select addiction, and also learning how to receive help. Often we choose physical illnesses or physical disabilities in order to be in a place where we receive help, but it could be that there were a few different things that you had the opportunity to learn in dealing with addiction, and receiving help was one piece of that larger story. Now, there are other reasons that addiction was selected beyond wanting to learn particular lessons. Sometimes it's actually about karmic balancing. Perhaps you really disrespected your body or disrespected other people's bodies in previous lifetimes. So in this lifetime, you wanted to have the experience of disrespecting the body through drugs, alcohol, behaviors, etc., so that you can balance the scales. Another reason people select addiction, and I think this is a beautiful one, is because they want to help other people who are addicted. And so they know they need to go through the experience of addiction in order to truly help people that are having that experience. So they willingly go through that pattern so that they can help the world, help other folks. Now, note, while we're talking about the pre-birth planning process, it is not simply the soul experiencing addiction that plans this as part of their life. Also, the people around them are part of that selection process. We do hear a lot about that when we're looking at doing past life regressions or near-death experiences, when we're talking about folks that are looking at their pre-birth planning process and the folks around them that are involved. Because it is not simply the addict that is learning lessons, people around them have the opportunity to learn lessons as well. Sometimes those lessons are around setting boundaries. That's very common. If you're somebody that in previous lives often gave too much, or let people walk all over them, or whatever that story was, it could be that you said, okay, I'm going to sign up with being your parent or your child or your sibling or your loved one in this lifetime, because it means because of your behavior, I'm going to have to set boundaries because it's just going to be too much. That could be one reason that was like, yeah, I could get some value out of this experience. It could be that the person said okay because they wanted to practice compassion. They wanted to practice love. They wanted to practice being able to support somebody through some really challenging times. But it also could be because they're going to need to learn how to deal with self-care. They're going to need to deal with anger. Whatever that addiction is pushing on the people around them, it's giving them an opportunity to grow and develop in some way. Not a fun way. Earth is not fun, usually. Being a human being, not fun. Not a great ride, at least in this time period. It's particularly hard, but it's through these hardness, these challenging experiences that we are pushed to get stronger, to get deeper, to become our best selves. That's the opportunity that is being presented here, is to really tap into the beauty that we all possess within ourselves through being kind of pushed like a diamond, our little diamond analogy. So this is part of the reason why this was selected. But now let's talk about the work, how we can work with addiction, what it's really calling on us in our lives right now, not before we were born, but right now. At its heart, addiction is about a wound or pain that we have, and that we're using this behavior, substance, etc., in order to handle or treat the wound. The thing I think is interesting about this is addiction is a solution. Whatever that behavior is, it's a solution. It's a bad solution. It's a horrible solution. But it is what we have access to help us with the pain that we're experiencing. Because being a human is very painful. All of these emotions and the stuff that goes on in our head and how mean we are to ourselves and how mean other people are to us or how we are to other people, etc. It's really hard. So when we reach for whatever this activity is, this is a way of treating a wound. The analogy that I was thinking about, I think that's really appropriate, is if you had a wound, right? Let's say you got sliced and you cut an artery and you're bleeding profusely and you're like, I need to deal with this. And the only thing at hand is this muddy, oily rag. And you grab it and you put it on the wound to stop it bleeding. Now, it's not good because it's dirty, right? It's festering. It's going to cause illness in that arm. And it's not really going to fix the artery. Like, you need stitches. You need medical care. But in the moment, you're using what you've got at hand to help you with that wound. What the opportunity is here is to find something better than a dirty rag to deal with this wound. And the thing to keep in mind is that the addiction is not going to heal the wound. The wound is still going to be there until you heal the wound. You need to find something that will actually suture it. That's why it's very common when you say, okay, well, I'm not going to use this dirty rag anymore. This is a horrible thing for me. It's making me sick. Well, if you haven't fixed it, you still need to heal it. So you're just going to grab something else. I think a great way to illustrate that is when we talk about food addiction and people that get very get larger bodies because of food addiction and then opt for gastric bypass surgery. Well, what ends up happening, and I've known somebody that this happened to firsthand, is that was just taking away the solution. You still needed a solution. So then what ends up happening often for people that have had gastric bypass surgery, not everybody, obviously, because a lot of people go through therapy and they use this opportunity to heal, etc. But it's not uncommon for them to become alcoholics afterwards because the changes of their stomach have actually caused them to be able to uptake alcohol more quickly. So unfortunately, I do know somebody that was her situation, that she lost all that weight, but she still had the wound and ended up becoming an alcoholic. So again, let's focus on healing the wound. So I'm going to give you some things to react to if you are somebody who is an addict, or if you're somebody who knows somebody who's an addict and you're playing along yourself. What sounds to be what is going on here? What is the wound? Is the wound emotional pain? Is it shame? Is it fear? Is it loneliness? Is it emptiness? Is it grief? Is it unresolved trauma? Is it disconnection? Do any of those resonate as the wound, as what you were trying to escape by engaging in whatever the behavior or substance is? And then the other half of that I'm asking you is because we're looking at what you're trying to get away from. What are you trying to go towards? Are you trying to create a feeling of love? Are you trying to create a feeling of peace? Are you trying to create a feeling of belonging, connection, acceptance with other folks? Are you trying to create a feeling of safety? Are you trying to create a feeling of fun and joy and excitement? These are all clues as well as far as what it is you are trying to get towards. Now, the opportunity when we look at those things, and let's say it's about connection or belonging, how can you begin to bring that into your life in a healthy way so that you don't need to get it through this unhealthy way? So again, if it's connection, 12 steps. If it's peace, perhaps that's around meditation or spirituality. If it's safety, that might be a lot around trust and learning how to trust yourself and how to create a safe space and how to really believe that you can take care of yourself. right? I find that the lesson of safety, we often focus on safety being an external situation because, right, the external world is very unsafe. But what it's calling for us to learn on a soul level is about trusting ourselves, that we are the ones who make ourselves safe by removing ourselves from environments, by being able to take care of ourselves, by being able to say no, by being able to choose better people, etc. But I think when we look at this on a spiritual level, the opportunity here is around connecting up with your higher self, living in integrity with your higher self and who you truly are. Your lower self runs the game when you're an active participant in addiction. This is about letting your higher self run the game. Now, in doing research for this video, I wanted to have at least a few tips. Again, find professional help, but a few tips if you're dealing with this. Now, again, we hear it all the time, one day at a time, right? That is the motto for the 12-step program. And I think it's particularly beautiful on a spiritual level because the only time that exists is right now. The past doesn't exist right now. The future doesn't exist right now. Whatever you did prior to this moment is not reality. It's now just a thought form. It's now just a thought form. So right now you get to make a decision, and then right now, and then right now. It's always about what is the highest decision you can make in that moment. What is the most right decision you can make right now? Now, I'll also recommend somebody called Buddha Betty, who I really love. I found out about her through her near-death experience. And she was somebody who did basically every drug. I think she was homeless, a prostitute. She did lots of horrible things to other people. She talks about this herself. She did it intentionally. She hurt other people so that she didn't get hurt. That's what she had learned in her life. She was raised by addictive parents. She had extreme trauma. And in her near-death experience, she was shown her pre-birth planning. And I loved this so much. In her pre-birth planning, the way that it was shown to her was that she was in a grocery store and she had a shopping cart and she was running down the aisles and there's all these cereal boxes. And on the boxes were printed things like addiction, prostitution, abuse, etc., etc. And she was just throwing them all in her cart. She was really excited to make the most of this life. I'm sure she was like, what were you thinking? But she's this really bright, beautiful being that is all about her recovery process from a multitude of addictions. So if you are somebody that is actively dealing with addiction, whether you're actively engaging it or actively in recovering, I highly recommend checking her out as a resource because I think she can really speak from her own place of knowing in a way that can help you. So I'll link to her down below in the description, Buddha Betty. Now let's talk about what's happening on the soul level when we talk about addiction. Does this damage the soul? No, this does not damage your soul. This is something that happens at a human being personality level. And in fact, it's giving the opportunity for the soul to expand and grow and gain a greater depth of knowledge and understanding. So no, don't worry. You're not breaking anything inside of you. Now that said, you may accrue karma by what you've done. You may have done some horrible things and you may choose to come back in future lives or even in this life to work through that karma. But here's the secret. Karma is not inevitable. It's something that we choose to experience because we want to right our wrongs. If we do something where we've harmed somebody else, we want to make up for it. That's part of the balancing process. But you can lighten the karmic experience through self-forgiveness and through taking personal responsibility. Those two things are lightening your karmic load. That's why it's a critical step in that 12-step process. Now, I've talked a lot about how this is part of our pre-birth planning process, and you might think, I don't think so. I don't know what that's all about. Well, I made a whole video talking about the pre-birth planning process. If you want to know what all is involved, what it's all about, I break it down here. I hope that you're doing okay. I believe in you. We're all here doing our best in this crazy wackadoo life. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.